Hey guys, this is DFD, aka Dark Frozen Deaths, back with another Kamihime project video. Now, this one's going to be a little bit different with how I normally do stuff because I've glanced through on this wiki and there's like a lot of missing things on here, so this will probably be quicker. But this is a wind advent event, so fire is going to have the advantage. There's a heroic fight, so you're going to want to give that a shot if you can. But like I said, the info's going to be weird as you'll see later on. But because it's an advent event, you're on your own on this one, so make sure you're strong enough to deal with everything. And I also have to mention that there's a specific weapon in this event where you may want to hold on to it. I'll explain that a little bit later. But because it's an advent event, grind through at the highest difficulty you can do and just get the drops from there. My suggestion: get the 1/10 SSR tickets so you can get your guaranteed SSR pools eventually. Get all the gacha tickets basically. Get the magic jewels, get the books, get the Adon. You may want to get both weapons. But like I said, I'll explain that in a second. But then there's also the green cores. They're starting to have a lot more use, especially later on when we get some of the JP sad stuff, so you probably want those as well. Generally, you want to get most of the stuff in this event anyways. The only exception is probably the SR weapons, because you can bypass those. Unless you need more fodder, of course, for skill leveling. Half elixirs, only if you need them. Soul points, only if you need them. There's a lot of stuff you just easily get somewhere else, but you do want to get the tickets, you do want to get the SSR stuff, you do want to get the magic jewels, you want to get the books, because the books are pretty useful, you want to get the cores. Dragonic Eye Shard should be here to get those as well. But other than that, it's all up to you. Now, I'm going to skip ahead to the weapons because of a few other things. But here's why I mentioned the weapons. There's an axe that gives assault plus elaborate. I don't know if it's going to final limit break. If it does, it may end up being a better elaborate weapon than the ultimate one, because every ultimate raid has large elaborate with small assault. So depending on what you want more out of, you may or may not want to keep this weapon. Again, I don't know if it can final limit break. It will do it later on if that's the case, because this event will have to repeat. The bow is the most interesting one, because this is the only time that I've known of that Rebellion is on an event weapon. And what Rebellion does, it's like Vigor, but in reverse. The lower your HP, the more Rebellion you get. Now, it's also in its own multiplier too, so it's not going to add to Assault. I'm unsure if it adds to Vigor multiplier or not. I'm hearing from a lot of different things that it does not add to Vigor multiplier, but given Rebellion is one of the things we don't have too much access to, and they're just handing it in this event, you may or may not want this weapon, even if it doesn't final break. So, my suggestion, hold on to the weapon until you are absolutely sure you won't need it. So, you probably want to get this weapon more than the axe, actually. But I would say get both of them, because, again, you never know what's going to happen later on. Either one can honestly end up with some decent use. So, there's that. The Adon herself, very good Adon in my opinion, because elemental attack plus defender is always a great start for a team. So you're getting a little bit of a boost and stuff that you would need. And then on top of that too, she has a combo rate debuff as well. And you don't see too many of these. They're kind of situational, but it's still good to have one. So my suggestion would be to keep her, and she'll definitely make a very good main slot add-on. I'm not too sure about sub-slot, but definitely main slot. So that's how it works with her. Now, as for the event itself, I'm going to scroll back up. As you can see, for some weird reason, they don't have much of crap in the enemy data in here. They've got orb counts, which is like, for all the important difficulties, you'll probably end up grinding 2 orbs. but it's going to be hard to tell. And quite frankly, Heroic has the same enemies as Ragnarok Plus. It's just that two of them are lumped together in the second stage. And I'm unsure about the total HP you're going to have to go through, but recently we've been having to deal with heroic fights that had like a good upwards of 300 million HP, so expect Guardian raid HP, or maybe even getting closer to Atlas, who has like 400 million. So expect that total amount of HP throughout the entire heroic fight, not just one stage. As for the fights themselves, they do have a little bit of info right here in paragraph form, but I'm going to quickly go over some of it. The main gimmick of the boss, a tornado debuff. You can't remove this, you can't block it. When it's slapped on you, that's it. Now, what it does is do damage over time, but it also says something about burst enhancement. I don't know if it's going to be enemy burst or your burst. It's more than likely going to be against you, so be very wary of that. The trick to this is that you can cancel its effect by doing combo attacks of your own. You have to double or triple attack. Might be easier said than done, depending on what you have, but there's a few characters that definitely do come in mind that really up your combo rate. Like, Daki has actually gotten a lot better lately, so she'll probably be good. It's a bit risky, but there's also SSR Beelzebub for fire. But like I said, risky because a lot of her buffs have some sort of drawback, and a few of them did get removed, but it depends. But there's a combo rate buff on Daki for sure, and she also ups the normal attack damage and gives you a drain too, which is a pretty strong drain, so there's that. And she also has a 2-turn 40% wind resistance buff, so she'll definitely be quite useful in this. For those that don't know, it's the Fox Girl, the only one that I've known of in this game. So she's on fire in the SSR pool. Absolutely have a fire healer. You're going to need it. Even if it's SR, bring a fire healer. If you don't have one, turn your soul into a healer. Now, as for the gimmick with the tornado debuff, it says that it's given like every 4 turns on Ultimate, and Ragnarok might be the same case. Also, any special actions that the boss has is going to have a higher priority than burst. That tornado debuff is definitely one of them. However, in Ragnarok Plus, it starts dealing damage, so be careful of that. Now, as for other things in Ragnarok Plus, it's going to be a special action that deals damage every 5 turns for the first enemy. But if it's in blind, it takes damage twice. Like anything's in blind, it takes damage twice. So there's that. Second stage of that, 1 orb. But the burst is going to end up stacking attack buffs on itself. So be very careful of that. And then on top of that, if you use any healing abilities in the second stage, you're going to get smacked back 4 times at random. Third stage of Ragnarok Plus, enemy has AoE, but when HP drops down to half, it's going to come with a defense down debuff. So that can be pretty bad. AoE is very, very dangerous in this game, especially if you start seeing some very high numbers with AoE. Multi-hit can also be pretty dangerous too, but it depends on who gets smacked. If it smacks one character, they're going to pretty much get destroyed. So stages 2 and 3 are definitely going to be a problem if you can't handle it. Stage 4, Ragnarok Plus, is of course a boss. They do mention that all the special actions it has is going to nuke you. I wish I can give you more info, but that's all I got on this, so unfortunately I don't know it. Now, as for Heroic, there is a 30-turn time limit on the first stage. And it says something about a release of all buffs and 100,000 damage AoE. This means that if it has that, you're going to get screwed very, very quickly. You're going to die. if it goes off. Basically, that's what it means. It says blind is giving first turn. It says all normal attacks will definitely be missed if you're in a blind effect. So you definitely want to get rid of your blind as quickly as possible. Characters that can prevent debuffs or heal them is going to be very, very helpful in this. On top of that, enemy burst is going to deal more damage. So be careful with that. But it does say time limit is like 30 turns, so if you can't kill it in 30 turns, you're going to see all your buffs wiped, along with 100,000 damage immediately after. It's all in the same attack. So that's counting as a fail. Now, second stage, 2 enemies, still no mode gauges. One takes an offensive approach and one takes a defensive approach. And they will shift between those. If you hit the person with the defensive approach, you're going to get counterattacked. And if you hit the person with the attack icon, which is a sword, it says you're not going to make much of an attack. So, the whole trick with this is to buff up yourself defensively. And it also helps if you can remove any enemy buffs you can. So that's something to know. And then if there's only one character left, it's going to start getting very angry by buffing its attack power and turning it into AoE. So basically you may or may not want to take them both out at the same time. Generally in a lot of these later fights in the game, when it comes to multiple enemies, usually if you leave one, then you may end up making the other much, much worse. So, something to pay attention to that one. And it says a tornado state is given literally every turn in stage 3. Basically, you need to keep your health up. So you have to combo attack as much as possible. There's also a mode gauge on this enemy too, and the raging burst will end up granting a debuff of combo rate down, which is just going to make that tornado even worse to deal with. So a lot of debuff removal, buff removal, going to be very helpful. Definitely bring a healer, definitely bring some damage cuts if you can. This is going to look pretty chaotic, so keep that in mind. Because combo rates are very, very helpful. Paracelsus, easily one of the best ones to bring because she'll start buffing up your combo rate. However, only if you have your healing and defenses covered. Because if you don't, then you're going to want it as Asclepius or Caspar or Romulus, any of the ones that do that type of stuff. But if you have those covered by your characters, then Paracelsus is easily going to be the best one to have because she'll start stacking combo rate buffs and it will make it a lot easier to deal with the dual tornado effects. Also outside of heroic fights too, so there's that. Now of course characters that they recommend: Dion said, the fire one, Apollo, Mars. If you have her awakened, Yamaraja, or I forgot her name, how to pronounce it, but she's awakened and she's very, very good for that because she's got a lot of different things that really help out for that. I mentioned Daki, they have her suggested here. Amon's very good because she can buff, she can help you out with filling your burst gauges too, so you can pull out some offense. She also gives a buff that gives you some very good damage resistance as well. Another thing to have. Fire version of Soul, fire version of Shamas, fire version of Tish, they've suggested them. Booer, if you need to create some potions. Asclepius can also create some potions too. If you have some space, maybe Vaughn. There's a lot of options to try and help you out with this one. One more I'd also like to put on the whole list too. I think her name is Prometheus. she can continuously give you some damage resistance too, which might be worth considering because of the fact that whenever she gets smacked, I think it's 20%, but it's a wind resistance buff that goes AoE. So that's also a thought as well. So you can have some permanent damage resistance with her in the party, considering how often she'll get smacked, but just make sure to keep her HP up. I highly doubt you're going to land her paralyzed though, so don't worry about that. But I do believe she comes with orb removal and an attack down. But either way, she's going to be pretty helpful if you have the space for her as well, because permanent damage reduction always helps. It always helps. Plus, it probably would stack pretty well with Romulus's stackable defense buffs too if you're using her. So that in turn is going to do a lot. But also a few other characters that you should probably have, but these are add-on ones. A friend Cerberus is really going to help you out. It's going to guarantee you land defensive debuffs. The Kaiser Dragoon, or its SR version, very, very good because it's going to give you some wind resistance. They say Yatagarasu is also helpful too. And I'd also like to put on Kieran, but she's Thunder, so definitely sub-slot her. If you have a Kieran on hand, she'll give you some ailment protection as well, because there's a few cases where you might actually get debuffed, and that will help out. They also suggest Behemoth for the same reason too, only she cures a condition instead of blocking it. But also anything that gives you like a barrier or a heal or something like that is pretty good too. There are some enemy buffs that come in hand too. You may or may not want Suzaku, so that's another suggestion. But this is all going off of what the little bit of info I have right here. So generally you're going to want some, it's all about status elements for the most part, and combo rate. As long as you can protect yourself well enough with healing and defensive buffs and all that, you're good to go. But the status ailments, like the debuffs and the buffs, are really going to play a huge factor in this, so be careful of that. And also, as a side note too, those of you that are really knowledgeable about the lore in this game, or characters or whatnot, this is yet another one of those characters that had an SR Eidolon version, but they've been turned into SSR. Get used to that, because it happens to quite a few Eidolons, and then on top of that, there's a lot of characters that get an SSR version later on too. Or at least another one in some cases. So that's the thing they're leaning towards in this game. It's going to become very heavy later on, so there's eventually going to be a point where you're just going to stop seeing any new R Kamihime. SR Kamihime are only going to pop up in raid events, and then it's just SSR from then on. So that said, it's going to lean a lot more towards those types, but there should be a little bit more methods in order to help out with the SSR stuff, so that's something else to know. But anyways, that's all for this. I may or may not do a heroic fight of this one, I'm not sure. My fire team wasn't able to handle the last wind heroic, and they haven't gotten much more HP since then, so I'm not too sure. Plus, I've been pretty busy myself lately, so I can't guarantee I'm going to have videos up in time, or I'm going to keep playing. I did want to put this video out though, so there's that. Unfortunately, I couldn't help too much because, again, just look at this. There's barely anything you're going to really see here. But anyways, that's all for this. More of this will come soon, and take care.